Hi, it's our second day in Edinburgh. Today we are visiting Paul MacDonald from MacDonald Armories to learn something about sword making. We already heard a lot of interesting stories we will just post later in the huge movie we are going to make. And today we have a small snippet for you with this sword. So, what about this one?
Well, this is a sword that used to belong to a Big Duncan Mackenzie, he was called. Big Duncan Mackenzie was a Jacobite. He was one that was fighting to restore the Stuart throne, the Stuart kingdom in the 1745 rising. So he was rising to fight for Bonnie Prince Charlie. And he was on the field of Preston Pans. The Battle of Preston Pans is not far from here in Edinburgh. It's only about 9 miles to the east, and it was a famous battle that the Jacobites thrashed. They thrashed the British Army at the time. It was a successful day if you were a Jacobite. And Big Duncan Mackenzie was on the field, and he saw a redcoat. He saw a British soldier whose horse had been killed. The horse was lying on its side, and the soldier had his foot trapped in the stirrup. But he was still fighting, and he was fighting against 8 Highlanders, fighting off with his sword. And Big Duncan saw this, and he ran over, and he called the Highlanders devils. He said, "You paltry devils, how many men does it take to face one man?" He thought this was a terrible thing, so he said, "Stand back, let me face him." So they stood back, and he set sword to sword with the man. He let him get his foot sorted first, sword to sword, and he stuck him pretty quickly with the sword and dropped him. And then his commander said, "Be on your guard, Duncan, there's a big trooper coming for you." And here was a big red coat. Big Duncan was big, he was 6'4", he was well built. And this big trooper was coming for him, and they set sword to sword. Big Duncan made a cut at the trooper's head, and the trooper had like a steel helmet, just a very plain steel helmet they often had, and it deflected off. So he knew his next cut had to be better. So there was a small wall just behind him that he backed himself, and he stood on the small wall, and as the trooper advanced on him, he leapt up and he gave him everything through his sword. It split the helmet and it split the head in two. So the Jacobites are discussing who did this with the helmet, and Big Duncan came in and they asked to see his sword, and so drew his sword and showed. And there was this great blunting corresponding to where the helmet and the head was split. They were all impressed, and some of them wanted to buy the sword, and he wouldn't sell it. So they offered him as many silver coins, as many guineas as could be laid along the blade. He wouldn't sell it. So he went home shortly after the battle with 2 friends, and they're making their way back to the west coast, to Lochaber, and on the way they come across some of the redcoat troop, and the redcoats call them to halt and say, "Oh, you'll come to no harm." So his 2 friends ran away and left him there. So he advanced and he walked towards them, and the redcoats surrounded him and took him prisoner. They took him to a castle at Kilhern, where there was to be a trial for him. And word got back to his commander. Now, a daughter of his commander was married to a Campbell, and she sent him to go and speak on behalf of Big Duncan to secure his freedom. So when it came to his trial, that happened, and he got his freedom. He could make his way back home, but he had to swear an oath that he would never raise arms again for the cause of Bonnie Prince Charlie. And his sword was taken from him, and his sword was taken to Inveraray Castle, which was the castle of the chief of the Campbells at the time, Duke of Argyll. Now, only last winter I was asked by the Duke of Argyll today to refurbish the weapons at Inveraray Castle, and this was one of them. That as I was refurbishing, noticed a great blunting of the blade, which here appears to be the impact point, where it's warped the edge of the sword, and it's also rolled it, and it's folded the edge over here, and it's folded the edge over here, and that continues all the way down here. So for about 11 inches or so of the blade, it's very clearly blunted and folded the edge over. And there's only one thing that would cause that, and that's steel. There's a lot of force behind it. And so this would be the sword of Big Duncan Mackenzie. Split the redcoat's head in two, helmet and all.
So if you see a sword like this, can you tell what happened?
Yeah, this is very different trauma to blade contact. Blade contact, like little nicks here, is blade on blade contact. That's easier to see, but this is very distinctive.